persona of empathy. Even before she started ever doing the empathy gym and the training and all that, it's like who she is. And so it carries. And so, yeah, I just want to say that to Barbara so she would know that that's the reality.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, well, I kind of started, I'll edit too as I need to, but I did start recording. And so let me just jump in and just for those that are going to be watching this later, I want to just say welcome. I'm Laura, the owner and publisher of Paola Lane magazine. So this is issue number 5, I think, Love Lived, and that's what we're going to talk about today. And so I brought on my friend Mary, Renat, and Cameron, and she and I talk a lot. We talk every week, and she brought her friend Barbara because these ladies have, and I'll let them introduce themselves, and we just wanted to have a discussion, a roundtable to talk about love and empathy. And I brought them in because these are ladies who walk in that in their life personally. And I think we all can learn from each other. And so take what you will. So we are going to do first part of this for those of you who are watching. At some point we will end it, but then we'll continue and go deeper in the discussion for those of you who are part of my Unveiled community. And hopefully when I edit this, there'll be a link there across the screen. If not, check the comments to join our Unveiled community. It's only $12 a month. We dive deeper. You can see some of the behind the scenes and participate in some of our discussions. And it includes a magazine subscription. So if you want to finish the conversation that we have, join Unveiled and you can get the rest of the story. So all right, so real quick, I guess Mary and Barbara, just an introduction of who you guys are. I know we're not experts here. The whole point of this is just for us to talk about our experiences in love and share it with others. So just tell us a little bit about yourselves. I guess, Mary, go ahead. You go ahead and start.
I am a functional nutrition counselor and owner of Mary Hart Nutrition. And I think that empathy is one of those things and love is one of those things that I really have struggled to make sure I'm expressing that. And the reason I say that is because I'm a very direct person, like what you see is what you get. I say what I mean kind of thing. And I've noticed that sometimes, when you have that personality, you can be quick to go for the jugular, make your point or whatever, but you forget the other person, wants to be seen and heard and valued. So anyway, I've learned a lot I have 5 children, through many mistakes, dangers, toils, and snares I've come. And I am in process, as we all are. And my friend Barbara and I are encouraging one another in this. And so, yeah, that's pretty much me. I'm married, mom of 5 with 3 grandkids as well, granddaughters. So go ahead, Barbara.
Hey, y'all, I'm Barbara Gage. And as Mary said, I'm one of her dear friends, and she's one of my dear friends. And I live in North Carolina, and I have 2 children, 20 and 17. And I help people through using massage therapy to help them with any physical or even mental, emotional issues that they may be dealing with, to help them find and create a space and to rest, to bring balance into their life, and just a way of connecting with their hearts and giving them a space to just be in those moments. So I've been doing that for roughly 26 years, but as far as empathy is concerned, I have always felt like I'm an empathetic person, but to be honest, I didn't really know how to walk that out in situations of conflict. conflict was always something I actually ran away from and sort of like stuck my head in the sand, or, tried to do whatever I could to fix it. And so, when you go through your course of life doing that, you eventually find yourself in a place of complete burnout and maybe even feelings of resentment or confusion and all of that. So I found a source of teaching, a tool that has helped me tremendously to understand what empathy really is and what that can look like in real world situations, real world relationships, and in situations where we need to work through maybe some pretty intense conversations with others, or where we really want connection, but we're having a struggle trying to find a way to connect with the other person. So, yeah, I've been, I've taken a class and I've been walking through that and just practicing the process and growing in that. So it's been a gift, and it's actually been a gift of discovering myself too. So it's been wonderful.
Well, let's start with the basics. I think everybody has their own idea of what love is. So I'd like to hear from you guys. What do you think is love?
I always think of love as sacrifice. That's the word that comes to my heart.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as I hear the word love, I think of giving. I think of sacrifice. I think of placing the needs of others above myself. In saying that, I realize that creates a lot of anxiety for a lot of people. There's reasons for that, because we have a lot of messed up boundaries and abuse in the world that we live in. And so I think understanding who God is has helped me understand love, has been integral in helping me be able to even receive love. Therefore, if I can't receive it, I can't give it. So anyway, that's a deep conversation to have, but that's what I think of. That word comes to mind first. I'm not saying that's my all-encompassing definition,
Right.
but I'm just saying that's the first thing that comes to mind when I think of your turn, Barbara.
And we'll come back to that receiving love here in a second. So yeah, I want to hear, Barbara, what you think love is, and then let's talk, and then let's go into talking about how do we receive love.
Well, I mean, sort of like what Mary just said, love is sacrificial. Love is giving, but I also believe love is receiving as well, like Mary mentioned. We were created to love and be loved. And I think a lot of times we as humans have a hard time on the receiving end. Giving, especially if you're mercy motivated, just seems easy and comfortable and safe. But the receiving part feels maybe almost selfish. And so that I think that's a big component of love too. And being able to give presence to that whole process when you're in relationship with somebody, or even if it's a stranger, but being able to not just sacrifice everything you have and forget yourself, but be able to communicate that love in such a way where there's like an ebb and flow of giving and receiving. And I mean, there's different ways of doing that, but I think it's a two-way exchange. Right. And, because I think we can get into a place of love is, yes, we just lay down our life and we just give everything we have. And then we end up being empty. Okay. And so I think love encompasses an ebb and flow of that giving and receiving.
So you brought up a couple of things that I kind of want to touch on because, it can be so, sorry, I'm writing notes as we're talking. It can be really ambiguous as when we talk about love. Well, when I show love to that person, well, what does that really look like? And, and so a lot of people, like that book, the 5 love languages or whatever. And what then I've run into over the years are situations where people demand that I interact with them based on their love language. And for me, I'm like, well, we've just stepped out of love right now. When we demand that people interact with us in the way that they prefer. And so my question is that really love? I mean, yes, so let's talk about that receiving. We receive love best when somebody gives us something or says something nice. That's easy for us to receive. But is that, for me, if love language for me is maybe kind words, but somebody likes to give gifts instead of necessarily speak. So now then I don't feel loved. Well, then that's really a mindset probably on my part of unable to receive and have the capacity to love. And sometimes we think love is based on the performance of other people. And I know as a mother, I have learned that my love for my son isn't based on whether or not he returns that love. And so that's where I differ with the love languages. I've learned what is my son capable of giving me. And I receive that and I enjoy that and I embrace that instead of thinking, well, he doesn't love me the way that I prefer. What are what's your thoughts on that?
I can concur with that. Absolutely. Like, I think love is stopping and slowing down long enough to be able to see that other person and see the attributes of who they are and how God put them together, and then be able to understand how they receive love or affirmation or whatever it might be, encouragement, but then also presenting them with an invitation to see you. And I believe that's love too, is a giving of sharing what your needs are maybe, or how you're put together, how you receive love. It's to me, it's an invitation for them to be able to understand the depth of how they can show love, rather than, well, I'm just going to give it all to you so that you feel, like you're on this beautiful, in this beautiful high of receiving all this love. But love, I think, is an invitation for 2 people to enter in and see beyond what, beyond what they already know about themselves, but be able to look into the other person and understand them, and then be able to express love in maybe a little bit of a different way because that person receives it in a different way. So if that makes sense, what I just shared.
I think a lot of times we, in our let's just say basic worldview, we have mistakenly thought that love was something that it's not. And what I mean by that is that I think when we are expressing what we are feeling and wanting it to be heard and seen almost in a way that's like what you were describing, Laura, kind of forcefully, like, you're going to love me this way and this is just the way I am, or whatever. We actually don't realize that so many times what we call love, we're really just self-serving. We're really just serving ourselves. We're really just we're groping at trying to get our needs met, right? We're not doing what Barbara's saying. We're not thinking of the other person and how can we minister to them? How can we meet them where they're at? we're really not thinking that way.
Right.
And that's, you know, that's the reality of it. When I recognized that I was really quite a selfish individual, even though I knew better, I could at least say, you know, I think I'm doing that selfishly. I'm not really listening to the needs of this person that I'm interacting with. And so, yeah, I echo that, and I think that we've got some recognition to come to terms with about what we think love is.
Yeah. I think a lot of times we immediately assume it's a warm, fuzzy feeling, you know, where we like each other. And for me, especially in the process of not only life, but in doing this latest issue that I did of the magazine, it really just came back to, you both said that word, sacrifice. And it's really an emptying of ourselves. It has nothing to do with our feelings, has everything to do with our choices and our choice to put other people in front of us. But then, you know, we'll go into where's that line where it's now a detriment to ourselves, you know, and it hurts ourselves when we do that. So, and talking about turning the other cheek, and, you know, the Bible says when somebody takes your tunic, give them your cloak too. You know, we'll talk about that here later, but really love is our decision to still be kind in the face of unkindness, to give of ourselves, if even though that person will never acknowledge it or appreciate it or whatever. Love is, to me, that is love. And there's a difference between, well, and I didn't write them down, you know, there's actually, our English language is so limited. There's actually multiple kinds of love. So in a way, to really answer the question of what is love, we need to say, well, which love are you talking about? You know, we have the phileo and the agape and the eros, and you know, I think there's 7 or 9 different kinds of love. And I think for the purpose of this, and one of the things that I ran across in preparing this magazine issue was no other type of love can be properly expressed without agape love. And agape love is that divine or supernatural God kind of love. And for me, it was very humbling because I realized I have no capacity to love in that way. And so I personally, as someone who believes in God and believes in Jesus Christ, I have to submit myself to that. And I know a lot of our readers are not necessarily, you know, believe in God or anything like that. And so I don't know how to direct them in that way other than reach out beyond yourself and pray and ask, what is agape love? What is real pure love? So that I could be better in my affectionate love and my romantic love and my friendship love. Do you guys have any thoughts on that?
Go ahead, Barbara.
I don't have a thought right in the
Didn't have a
moment.
thought on that.
So.
Yeah, I was still thinking about what
Yeah.
you were saying, you know, I don't think we have the capability as human beings to love purely without the love of God in us.
That's right.
We really don't. Agape is what Laura's talking about there. And so because the motives of the heart get tainted quite easily, you know, we are all fallen, you know, nature. We have a nature that goes contrary to right. I mean, you look, if you want to argue that point, you just look at a child. The child will, you know, find ways to do things that, you know, they know they're not supposed to do. And how do they know they're not supposed to do that thing? Well, because they have a conscience. So, you know, we really do things based on what it is we want. And always, you know, before we meet God, we find out, before we meet God, we think we've got to grow to get our needs met. When we meet God, we find out that our needs have been met. And that's when real love begins.
Yeah, and I think you can build upon a foundation from there.
Yeah.
because the world definitely offers a form of love, but is it a sure and strong foundation that when that love doesn't produce the hope or the fruit that was hoped for, then it's like, okay, well, that's over, that's done, move on, move on to the next situation or person or whatnot, because there's not an answer to fix that brokenness. And so yeah, I mean, definitely having that sure foundation to come back to, because life is hard and loving is hard. And it's a pressing through it's a pressing of the vine, so to speak, or the grapes, so to speak, pressing out the goodness of it. But in that process, where we are pressed, we are, I guess, challenged in our relationships and in our workplace. And so always going back to that sure foundation of what pure love is, and God is love, I think is just what we can stand on, and always regain or refocus our attentions and our focus, and so that we can come back from those places that get shattered or broken or whatever.
Right. I think this is a subject that almost we could talk about every day for the rest of our lives.
Yeah.
Such a deep subject, and just even understanding God's love and how to receive his love, because his love is so vast. I think a lot of times we have filters or issues within us that block us from being able to fully receive that. And one of you, I don't remember who, at the very beginning, and I meant to go back to it, is a lot of times we can't give out love because we haven't been able to receive it. And actually all the time, if we're struggling to love, we almost need to step back as an individual and say, I'm really struggling to love in this situation, and just pray, God, what to show me how to receive your love, so that then I can love better. But before we start diving a little bit deeper, and before I switch over to just the unveiled section, I want to leave, some people with some thoughts, some practical ideas. Maybe you mentioned the workplace or the home. There isn't anybody on this planet that isn't in a situation where love is a challenge in some way, whether it's with a child, young or old, a spouse or a family member, or a workplace environment or a neighbor. There is someone who challenges us. I call them sandpaper people, or they're burrs in our saddles. So do you guys have any tips practically of how to shift our mindsets and start interacting with empathy? So I really want to start shifting into this topic of empathy, and how do we, is there a couple of just, it doesn't have to be the full thing, some little things to start shifting our mindset so we can start shifting the situation? Because, we all know we can't change other people, but we can change ourselves. And love isn't based on the actions or the reactions of somebody else. It's entirely based on our decisions. So,
yeah, I want to hear. Barbara has ventured out into this realm so deeply, which we're not going to go. I know we're in this section. We're not going to go as deep as we're going to go when we get to the next section. But one of the things, and I'm going to say this, and then I want Barbara to kind of give the practical steps. Really and truly, what I missed in communicating with most people my whole life until I began working through this concept is to listen for the needs of the person I'm talking to.
That's really good.
So that Barbara can expound upon, and then we can go deeper in the next section, I'm sure. But Yeah, that's the part that really stuck out to me. And I know Barbara knew that was an aha moment for me when she helped me identify that.
Yeah, I'll just go brief into that. This is something that we practice a lot in our empathy gym and through the course that I have been, or I went through, but now I'm just in practice with others. But there are universal human needs. And so a lot of times we don't have the language to really express what it is we need. And so we end up reacting to situations because we haven't really defined what is the need deep inside of me right now in this moment. And so I'm reacting to find a place to land, a place of safety right now, because this feels maybe too overwhelming for me or out of control, or goes against what I believe in, whatever it might be. It can stir up us in a physical way. And when our physical being gets charged, it definitely affects our emotions. And then if we're quick to react, we'll react out of that place. But if we can take a moment to slow down and begin to ask ourselves, okay, what am I feeling right now? And what need might that feeling be connected to? So say, you're in a situation and that feels really overwhelming. Maybe you're needing some support in the moment, and maybe that's something that you need to express to that person, or maybe you're just needing some clarity or understanding around that. So and I can actually give you some links, Laura, to the copies of these two sheets that are universal human feelings and universal human needs. And I've used these sheets a lot. And there's just categories, but lots of different words that can define what a feeling and then a need. And I use these sheets to look at them in those moments, like when you just feel like I can't, I'm just like charged right now and I just need to step back, but I can't think of what I'm really feeling right now. It helps to go over this list and look at the feelings and be like, oh yeah, that's what I'm feeling right now. And oh yeah, I'm really this is a need that I have right now. So defining those, and you don't have to define it out loud. It's just a way to connect with what's alive in you in the moment. And then you can, that may translate into a conversation with the person you're having or the situation you're in, or it may just be a way to bring some ease and peace with yourself because you're connecting with what's going on inside of you instead of just, flailing around in that situation or feeling like you don't have a pathway to walk. And so that's been really, really helpful to me. And I keep these sheets in my car or, near on my refrigerator because, things are happening every moment of the day. And we just kind of sort of sometimes go in just, do mode, and we don't stop enough to slow down and really connect with what's alive inside of us. And when you really start getting connected with what's alive in you, you can start seeing and asking questions of what maybe is alive in the other person, and maybe even helping them to connect with what's their needs are. So that's what I've been practicing, and it's been very powerful. And I don't do it all the time because, I'm practicing.
Right.
So, I don't do it perfect, but it's just changing a lifestyle change that I'm making. It's like learning a new language.
Right. Really
So
it is. And so I'll put a link to that in the description below. And so just before we switch over into the unveiled and we go a little bit deeper, I just want to recap kind of, Mary, you said practically listen for the needs. That means when we're in a situation or watching or listening, instead of immediately, like you said, Barbara, too, instead of immediately reacting, maybe stop that reaction, slow down, and listen for what they're trying to say. And if it's an active situation where you're in a conversation or you're interacting, I would say, I would also agree with that slowing down is probably the number one thing to learn to love better, because a lot of times we all just, or we see somebody away and we immediately are prepared for conflict or irritation. We just make a lot of assumptions. So maybe the number one tip right now is, if you want to love better, slow down first. And there's a lot more to do. And we're going to dive deeper. So if you want to follow along, you can. And then also my thought as I was listening to you is we learn to love better. There's a lot more peace in our life.
Yes.
Because there's a lot less conflict. And it doesn't, again, what I've learned is that a lot of peace came into my life. The situation didn't change. There was still the conflict, but there was peace in the midst of that conflict when I started to learn what love looked like. So now we're going to end this portion, and now we're going to flip into Unveiled, and we're going to talk about love in the midst of conflict and when it's difficult and where the boundaries should be. So if you guys are interested in going into that conversation, please join us with Unveiled. So until then, all the information is below. Thanks so much for watching this portion.